Well, thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Adulting 101, From the Classroom to the Boardroom. I'm Greg Berry, Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. Since this is a virtual event, please excuse technical issues or glitches that may pop up. If you have any problems with video or audio, click the reconnect button on your screen to get back to the webinar right away. A quick note, we are recording this webinar. A replay will be made available on our website by tomorrow. If you have questions for Dr. Gorman throughout today's presentation, please drop them in the chat. We'll have time for Q&A after his presentation. Did you know you can earn credit towards an Evergreen certificate by taking part in Backpacks to Briefcases events? And it's easy. Just join us for various events and webinars throughout the year. Topics range from financial to personal growth, along with golden electives like volunteering opportunities and lunch and learns. Find out more at alumni.uab.edu/backpacks. Today, we are excited to welcome Dr. Alan Gorman. Dr. Gorman is an associate professor of management and the chair of the Department of Management, Information Systems, and Quantitative Methods in the UAB Collat School of Business. He earned his BA from the University of Georgia, MA from the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and PhD from the University of Tennessee. At this time, I would officially like to welcome Dr. Gorman to our webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the invitation to speak to the alumni today.
You're so very welcome. And the slide deck should be coming up right now, and you are ready to roll.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. And thanks to everybody who's joining us today. I am very humbled and blessed to be here today. So hopefully I say a few things that are worth joining us for. But my name is Alan. I'm the chair of, we call it MISQ in the Collat School of Business. I've been at UAB about a year and a half. I was recruited to come here as the chair. Really enjoyed my time at UAB. But what I wanted to share with you are some things that I've kind of learned along the way, and I've learned kind of the hard way in some cases about the transition from being a college student and an alum of college on the way to wherever you end up in your career. I teach leadership in the Collat School of Business at all levels, all the way from, I have an honors freshman course to MBA courses. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about are things that I share with my leadership students. And they're things that you don't necessarily, you're probably not going to read a lot of these things in a textbook. You may hear about some things in the popular press, other podcasts, webinars, books, other things you may have seen. But, you know, I didn't want to focus in this talk on, you know, kind of the things you might hear at other venues all the time, like, you know, work to get your inbox, your email inbox to zero, and that's the secret to productivity and all that kind of stuff. I don't really want to focus on those things. I want to focus on things that I have seen in my life and in others' lives, former students' lives that I've seen who've grown up and developed and all have successful careers of their own. These are things that I think in my life and what I have seen, these are things that really move the needle in terms of your career and where you want to go and where you want to end up. So hopefully these are helpful. So I'm going to go through these. I've got 15 of these lessons learned that hopefully will be helpful to you. The first, and I wanted to start off with this, there really is no such thing as a life hack for success. Right. And I say that because over the last few years, I've seen so much out there about there's a hack for this, there's a hack for that. There's books about hacks. You know, Tim Ferriss is famous in this space for, you know, the 40-hour work week and all these hacks about how can you do more with less and all these kinds of things. You know, some of those things are helpful when it comes to short-term gains, things that might be helpful in terms of gaining productivity or minimizing time in certain domains and these kinds of things. But at the end of the day, if you want to look at really sustainable, life-changing behaviors, you really can't get away from the standard age-old suggestion of just do the hard work, right? It's about hard work. I have rarely seen people be successful for a sustained long period of time in their career without putting in the work, right? It all comes down to hard work. And this, I think this is important because we are in a society where everything is 30-second sound bites, things you see on TikTok, Twitter, all these things. Do this and you'll be successful. Do this and you'll get rich. Do this and it'll help one way or another. Some of those things may be helpful for a short period of time, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to hard work. If you're not willing to roll your sleeves up, put the time and effort into whatever it is that you want to do or want to be successful at, it's not going to be meaningful. It's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be successful. So first and foremost, you got to be willing, whatever it is you want in your career, you got to be willing to put in the work, right? There are some hacks here and there that may be helpful to you. And I would tell each of you, figure out what that is for you, right? I have found that, I've tried to do shortcuts here and there. It just doesn't work. You got to put in the hard work. So I wanted to lead with that because I think that kind of overshadows a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about for the rest of the presentation. This is, again, something else I tell my students as a college student and perhaps even as a recent grad. You may not have any clue what it is you want to do. When I was in college many, many years ago, I had no clue what I wanted. I didn't know what work was or a career was or what I was preparing for. I just knew that I had to go to college and major in something, and I would just figure out what that is. And it took me a long time to figure out what that is. I figured out early on in my career that what I was passionate about was giving back to other people. And I knew early on I wanted to be a professor. That was like the thing that really drove me to have the lifestyle of a professor, where I got to research things that I was interested in. I got to teach other people about cool things. And I got to be a part of a university environment. And I have been blessed to be able to do that for many, many years now. And I never once got into this career, and I don't think any professor honestly does, for the money, right? I've had students that I've trained that are making 5 times what I'm making, but I'm passionate about what I'm interested in and have been for many years. And the people the people that I surround myself with are passionate about what they're doing, and it keeps that engagement consistently. So I always tell people, figure out what you are passionate about. You may have no clue what that is. It may be years ago that you graduated and you still don't know. That's okay. Go try all kinds of different things. Figure out what it is that what really drives you. And when you figure that out and you chase that passion, all the rest of the stuff will come, right? If you're really good at what you're passionate about, things like money, fame, success, if that's what's in store for you, that will come later, right? But if you focus, where I have seen people falter is focusing on the money first and then hoping that the passion will come after. And I can't tell you how many people I know, how many people I've seen make tons of money, have houses, cars, all the trappings of life, and they're completely miserable. And I don't think it comes as a surprise to tell you that the research shows that, money doesn't buy you happiness. Of course, it's not, nobody wants to live in poverty, and there's certainly something to be said about having money when you can't afford basic necessities. But once you get to a certain threshold, money doesn't buy you any of that. And I have seen that in my life. I've seen it in former students' lives and people that I know. So first and foremost, figure out what you're passionate about. Go do it. Get really good at it. The rest of the stuff will come. So if you can figure that out, a lot of the other stuff will come along down the road. So my students get sick of hearing me say this, and I say this on day one of my classes. I'm a big fan of, there's a guy named John Wooden. He was a legendary coach of the UCLA basketball team. I think he won something like 10 straight NCAA championships. But Wooden was famous for, he wasn't really extraordinary in what he was doing as a coach. What he was really famous for was teaching the fundamentals and the basics, right? So on day one, he was famous for, he taught the players how to properly tie their tennis shoes or their basketball shoes. And, you know, he was recruiting big name players from across the country, and they would get to the gym, and he would focus the entire practice on tying your shoes. And people thought, man, what is with this guy? He's crazy. But he was laser focused on the fundamentals. And what I've always found is if you're focused, if you've got the fundamentals down, then you can really start to focus on the other things that really make a key difference, that are true drivers in what it is you're trying to do. And as a part of his focus on the fundamentals, he had lots of rules actually, but this is one of his famous 3 rules. Don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. And these are really simple rules. And you probably, if you think back to your school days, grammar school days, you can probably remember hearing these things from your teachers, from your parents. I think they're just as true today as they were way back when, right? How many times do we see in our society people complaining about this, whining about that, making excuses for this? And it's really become pervasive in our society where that's kind of the norm. And I'm not saying that there's not times and places where there are legitimate concerns where, you know, raising your voice and pointing people to injustice and things that where there's real concerns and real problems that need to be fixed. But by and large, a lot of what we encounter in our day-to-day life and work are things that are temporarily miserable, but we can overcome them, right? And what I have seen in my life, what I've seen in others, is that the people who truly make a difference, they don't spend a lot of their time whining, complaining, making excuses. They're focused on what can they do to make a difference. And again, if you focus on what can I do to truly move the needle and make that difference, that's where your energy is going to be better spent. If you spend all your energy down here whining, complaining, and making excuses, you'll feel better in the short term. Again, what's the long-term payoff? I'd rather focus on the long-term sustainable behavior that focuses on truly making a difference. And when we fall the victim of whining, complaining, making excuses, it's hard to really make a difference if you're focused in that area all the time. Again, this is another great one. And I tell my students, I tell my freshman students, day one, find a mentor. Okay. Find a mentor, find someone, whatever career you're in, whatever career you want to be in, find somebody in that career who can have an impact on you and your career. And I will tell you this, as somebody, I'm entering really the kind of the second half of my career now. I've been doing this a long time. I wish I had taken the time and energy a long time ago to really find a great mentor. I could have avoided a lot of problems a long time ago. I've learned a lot the hard way. But I can tell you, senior professionals in business, in whatever your career field is, they love to help out junior professionals. They love to help out people who are just starting out. I love. I get calls every once in a while from people on the PhD market who are looking to be a professor. I will drop whatever I'm doing and I will talk to them about being a professor, what it takes, what I've learned. Most people that I know who are successful in whatever their career field is, they want to give back. They love giving back. Take advantage of that. Okay. Take advantage, because the people who can be a mentor for you, some of the best advice that they can give you isn't necessarily, and by the way, a good mentor won't tell you what to do. I never tell people what to do. I tell people, here's some things you want to think about, right? But a good mentor will definitely tell you what not to do. They can tell you a lot of the mistakes that they made. They can tell you a lot of the things you want to avoid doing. Find a mentor. People who are seasoned in their careers love giving back. It's a great opportunity for you to get great feedback. Not just feedback, you get access to their networks. You get access to all of the wisdom and knowledge that they have learned along the way. And oh, by the way, the research is pretty clear. Successful people have mentors. And there's a great set of studies around the impact of mentoring. People who have mentors, they're more satisfied in their career, they make more money, they get more promotions, they're happier overall. The evidence is pretty clear. Mentoring works. So find somebody who can be a mentor for you. They will make a huge difference in your life. I can guarantee it. This is something that, again, not many textbooks will tell you this, and I've kind of learned this the hard way. You need to be able to learn to tell your story, right? There's a lot now out about branding yourself, having your own brand, who are you? I think that's really true. And I talk about it with my students in terms of having your elevator pitch, right? In fact, one of the things I do with my seniors is we develop their elevator pitch, right? And your elevator pitch is 2 minutes about you. Who are you? What are you about? What do you believe in? What are you passionate about? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to end up? Where do you want to go? Learn to tell your story, because when you go out and you talk to people in business settings, or maybe it's networking events or whatever, you want to be able to convey clearly and concisely, who are you? What are you about? Why should someone care? What are you looking for? Who can they help you? Who can they connect you with that may make a difference in your life? And to do that, you have to be intentional about coming up with a clear, concise story about who you are, right? And when you do that, you come across as somebody who's taken the time to learn and think about themselves in a way that they can convey to another person. And then based upon that, when you talk to other people in business or networking settings, those people will remember you, because they'll remember that story about who you are and what you're about. And that will help them if if you need help making introductions to other people, or maybe you're looking for a career in a certain industry or whatever it is, that having that story that you know about yourself and you memorized about yourself will really help you be able to convey that to other people. So you really want to learn who you are. What are you about? What is it that you want to convey to another person? And the reality is by learning more about yourself, you really learn more about other people, right? What differentiates you from other people, and how can you make a difference to other people, whether it comes to jobs, whether it comes to careers, whatever it is in life. Learn to tell that story, and then, practice that with other people. I know it sounds silly, but find somebody, a friend, a coworker, whoever, and say, let me tell you my 2-minute story, my 2-minute elevator speech about myself. Refine that, make it better. You'd be amazed at how easy conversations go, networking events go, when you have that story about yourself, and then you can connect that to what other people are talking about when it comes to their story. So learn your story, learn to tell your story. I think this one is important. I hear a lot of advice nowadays about say no to more, say no to everything, say no to this, that, and the other. there are times where it's helpful to say no. And I've been guilty in my career of saying yes to everything and not being able to say no. And I think there are times, when you're burned out, when, it's hard to get excited about your job or what it is you're doing. There are times when you need to say no. But I am a huge fan of saying yes. Say yes, and saying yes in the right situation. Say yes to things that challenge you and push you out of your comfort zone, right? What do I mean by that is, if you just go around doing the same old thing day after day, you're not really learning anything. You're not learning about yourself. You're not learning about different topics. You're not learning about potential things you might be doing career-wise, whatever it is. If you say yes to things that challenge you, you put yourself in a good position to learn more about yourself, about other topics. You also give yourself great opportunities to talk about yourself, to push yourself out of your comfort zone, to put yourself in situations you may not be comfortable in. And just give you a quick example, and I always tell we'll talk about this in another point in a second, but if you'd have told me I would be talking to roomfuls of working professionals, MBAs, executives, if you'd have told me that 25 years ago, I'd have said, you're crazy, get out of here. I was the guy in my class many years ago, scared to death when it came time to give our team presentation or individual presentation, scared to death, nervous, hated public speaking, could not do it. But I committed myself to, anytime there was an opportunity to get in front of an audience and convey a topic or talk about a topic, I would just say yes. And I would constantly put myself in those situations that really challenged me. I'm a natural introvert, right? So I get my energy is really, I spend a lot of time up here in my head researching ideas and collecting data and all these kinds of things. But when I put myself in those situations where I can challenge myself and put myself in a situation where I'm not naturally comfortable, I learn a lot about who I am and what I can and can't do. And when I push myself out of that comfort zone, the amount of learning, the amount of development for me personally is huge. So I would encourage you. And the reason I say this is I see a lot of students, former students, they'll say, yeah, I was asked to do blah, blah, blah. I don't really want to do that. It doesn't really sound that interesting. Well, one of the things to think about is, what are the networks? What are the things that you could be introduced to as a result of saying yes? I can't tell you how many networking things, and I hate networking, by the way, but I know it's important. Networking things that I wanted to not go to. I wanted to cancel at the last minute and say I couldn't make it, but I forced myself to go. And I would always, I'll meet somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's doing this one thing and they need some help on X, Y, or Z. Or I meet somebody I just have a fascinating conversation with, and I'll connect with them on LinkedIn. And there's opportunities I've had from doing that from people I met years ago. All of those opportunities came because I said yes to something that pushed me out of my comfort zone and really forced me to learn and really forced me to get better at whatever it is I was not that great at, which for me was networking, talking to other people, talking about myself. I hate talking about myself, but I've had to become very comfortable with that. And I think when you do that, the amount of learning that comes with that is just, it's incredible. So say yes to things that challenge you. This is another thing I tell my leadership students, particularly, I do a lot of work with managers, executives around leadership development. And when you talk to managers and execs around leadership development, a lot of people in those positions, especially if they've been a manager for a long time, if somebody like me is coming in, the egghead academic comes in and says, here's what you need to do to be a good leader, a lot of people will sit in the back and sneer and make jokes. And, what does this guy know about leadership? I can't tell you how important it is to check your ego at the door. Whatever it is you think you're an expert at, you probably really don't know enough about whatever that topic is. To this day, I go to webinars, I go to events, I go to things to learn how to be a better leader, to be a better professor, to be a better teacher. A lot of folks I know, not necessarily UAB, who are professors, think they know everything about whatever the topic that they research or teach or whatever. You can always learn more. Check your ego at the door. And when you check your ego at the door, you learn that other people, whether they're an expert, whether they're a novice, everybody's got great ideas. If you just stop to listen to what they're saying and not telling everybody what you think, if you listen to what other people have to say, you'll find that they've got some pretty good ideas. And the more time we take to listen to those ideas, the more we learn about ourselves, about our expertise, about whatever domain that we're interested in. We learn so much more about those things when we check our ego at the door, when we listen to people, and we listen with intention, right? And I don't mean, and I see a lot of people do this, is they're listening kind of superficially and thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to say next? And when I say listen to people, listen with intent, right? Listen intentionally. What is it that person is trying to tell you? And I'm famous for, and I always tell my students is, when you're talking to other people, when you meet other people for the first time, ask lots of questions, right? Ask lots of questions about them. One of the things it does is it makes it clear you're interested in what they have to say, right? People like that. They like it when other people ask them questions, right? But it also shows that you are truly listening to the conversation and truly interested in what they have to say. So ask lots of questions. So when I talk to people, I meet them for the first time, I ask all kinds of questions because I truly want to know who are they, where are they coming from, what's their background. But I also want to know, like, how can I connect with you? How can I help you? How can I, if there's things that I could potentially do for you or connect you with other people that might be helpful for you, I want to learn that about you. Okay, so to do that, check your ego at the door, listen to what people have to say, ask questions, ask follow-up questions. You'd be amazed how helpful it is to for other people to know that you actually want to know about what they have to say. So check your ego at the door. This is another thing. This is one of my pet peeves, and my students get sick of hearing me say this all the time. But I cannot stress this enough in this day and age. I've got two boys, 13 and 15. They are digital natives. They've grown up on social media. I am amazed and appalled the amount of negativity that we have in our society. And I'm not going to, say it's all social media, it's all Twitter, it's all whatever. It is what it is. But people in our society, by and large, have become so pessimistic and critical, and it's just pervasive in our society now, where somebody says one thing and everybody piles on and jumps on them. Whatever, that thing you said, that was dumb, that was stupid, you shouldn't have said that. Let me tell you, it is so easy to criticize. The real change, though, if you truly are devoted to change, if you truly want to see good things happen in your life, in society, in your community, you got to work with other people, right? If someone has a bad idea, or someone has something that, they make a stupid comment on social media or whatever, instead of criticizing, think, how can I help this person understand this thing that they don't have a good perspective on? How can I help them do better at that? Okay, let me give you a real quick example. Years ago, Walmart, and I use this in my classes, Walmart was perennially one of the worst environmentally conscious companies out there. And for years environmentalists would picket Walmart. They would stand out with their signs and chant evil things at Walmart, and Walmart was the big bad evil giant. It's happened for years, and you still see it to this day in other places. But there was a certain environmentalist named Jib Ellison who, instead of criticizing, picketing, protesting, which we see all the time, he said, how can I truly make a difference in helping Walmart, right? And what he did was he reached out to the leadership, got a meeting with the former CEO, was, I think at the time one of the Walton family was still the CEO, and they went on a rafting trip. And on that rafting trip, the environmentalist Jib Ellison pointed out all these water bottles all along the banks of the river. And he told the executive, you see all those water bottles? Where do you think most of those were purchased? And of course, the answer was Walmart, right? But he said, obviously, that's a problem environmentally, but let me tell you how I can actually help your company with costs and saving money. If you think about the packaging that your products come in, if we reduced all that packaging, obviously it'd be great for the environment. You'd be a greener company. Your company could actually save a ton of money by reducing the amount of packaging and the amount of waste that goes into it. So they had several conversations around this, and Walmart made a lot of changes. They became a lot more environmentally conscious. Now they started showing up on lists of green organizations. Obviously, Walmart wants to make money, right? One of the ways that they found that they could make money was by being more environmentally conscious and aware. I use that as an example to say it's a lot of hard work to be the person to reach out to somebody else that you don't agree with and say, let's figure out a way to work together. But anything worthwhile and anything worth doing, you got to be willing to stick your neck out there and work with them to create a better situation or a better future or whatever it is that you're really passionate about. Reach out to those people and try to work with them. It is so easy to stand on the sidelines and criticize and sling arrows at people. I see it every day. And I realize that to make a difference, you first have to point out a problem, and I understand that. Pointing out the problem shouldn't be the end point, right? If there's truly a problem and you want to make a difference, ask yourself, how can I be the difference that I want to see? How can I truly have an impact here? To do that, you have to work with other people. Real change takes working together. This is kind of, tongue in cheek. I've told you I really hate speaking in public, but I've just it's a lot more natural, a lot more comfortable for me to truly, to be good in the public arena or in business. If you want to attain a leadership position or go up the ranks in organizations in business or whatever your career field is, it will always benefit you to learn to speak in public. And I know it's hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me, still hard for me. It's still a challenge, but I put myself in those situations that challenge me. And I put this here kind of tongue in cheek. Even if it's bullshit, people will believe every word you said. If you are confident in what you have to say, people will believe and they will listen to what you have to say, right? And I've seen it many times. If people don't feel confident in what they're talking about and they're trying to convey something to an audience, other people pick up on that very quickly. And it's like sharks. They smell blood in the water, and they will figure out a way to poke holes in your story or whatever it is that you're trying to say. But if you know how to speak comfortably in public and can have a conversation or can talk to a broad audience of people, even if what you're saying isn't necessarily, and again, I say this tongue in cheek, I'm not saying that you want to just stand up in front of a room of people and lie to them about whatever it is you're talking about. but they'll believe you, they'll listen to you, they will engage with your ideas if you speak confidently and you have a good approach to speaking in public. So if that's not a comfort level for you, I would challenge myself, put myself in situations where I have to speak in public. There's all kinds of great opportunities for that. There's Toastmasters organizations. I think there's a Toastmasters in the Birmingham area. Great opportunities to have to learn how to speak in public and have conversations where you're talking with other people and talking to audiences of people. That will really help your self-development, and it'll help your self-presentation of yourself. The more you talk to other people, the more you learn about what you have to say, what you want to say, what you want to convey. So work on public speaking. I'm a huge proponent. I spend a lot of time in my classes talking about self-care. I use the adage here, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I've heard it described as, you're on an airplane and the masks fall from overhead. If there's a drop in air pressure, what do you do first? You always put it on yourself first, even before you do your kids or other people. The same is true when it comes to taking care of ourselves. If we do not practice self-care and take care of ourselves, and when I say ourselves, our mind, our body, our spirit, all of those things are important when it comes to self-care. And the research that's coming out now these days, when I was sitting in a classroom years ago as a college student, we didn't talk about self-care. We didn't talk about, the importance of exercise and sleep and, learning more about yourself and things like that. I can't tell you how important it is to take care of yourself and all the things that make you, right? So like for me, for example, it's really important for me that I get a good night's sleep, that I exercise regularly, I move more, try to eat less, which doesn't always happen. And I'm a huge proponent of learning, as you all probably have seen already. So I challenge myself to learn something new every day. I want to learn something new, either about myself or a different topic. I'll read books about different topics. Like I'm reading a book about biology. I don't know anything about biology, but I want to learn more about that, right? For me, that's important to practice self-care, because the more that I can help myself and take care of myself, the more likely, the more able and better I am to help other people, right? It's important for me to help other people. I can't help other people if I can't help myself from the beginning. So there's lots of different ways to do that. There's lots of things you can do. The thing I would say to you is, what do you value? What matters to you? Is it working out? Is it reading? Is it, getting a good night's sleep? You learn over time what makes your body tick. Take notes. You literally take notes, or take notes in your head. I didn't get a good night's sleep. That has made me difficult to work with today. And I'm not the person I want to be for the people I work with today, because I didn't get that good night's sleep. You need to work on those kinds of things, like getting better sleep, eating better, moving more. The more you do that, the more that your well will deepen. And so you can share what's in your well with other people. So be purposeful, be intentional about that. Don't make excuses. Don't make apologies for that. I do things like, for example, I don't send emails. I try not to send emails on the weekends. And I make no apologies that, hey, look, my weekends are for myself, right? I spend time with my boys. I spend time, going for a run on the trail. These are things that are important for me, for my own, mind, body health, that I'm going to be intentional about making a space for that when I can. And I don't make apologies for that. I've never seen a situation where if somebody didn't send an email on a Saturday, they didn't get a bonus or a promotion or whatever else from that, right? Email will wait. Let it wait till Monday morning or whatever it is your work week is when that starts. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to be life or death. Take care of yourself during the times that you can do that. This is, you're not going to read this in any textbook, but I think it's incredibly important. Don't forget where you came from, right? Every single person, everywhere, at all times, has achieved what they have achieved. They are where they are because of other people, whether it's your parents, whether it's your grandparents, your family, teachers you've had, friends you've had, whoever it is. Other people have helped you get where you are, and they will continue to help get you where you want to be if you trust and rely on them. So say thank you to those people. I guarantee you there have been a lot of people in your career, in your life, who have helped you at one point or another. Don't be afraid to reach out and just tell them thanks, right? And you know how good it would feel for those people to have a phone call from you or an email or a card or whatever that just says, hey, I was thinking about the impact you made on me years ago. That has made a lasting impression on me in my life and where I'm at. I just wanted to thank you for that, right? And I know it sounds kind of hokey, but there is nothing more that I love. I'll get a note from a student who 10 years ago took a class, and they'll say, I just want to say thank you for teaching me about X, Y, and Z. I've used it in my career. It's been so helpful, blah, 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 blah. I can't tell you how much of an impact that makes on me to know that I have made a difference in somebody else's life. And I guarantee you there's a lot of people in your life who have made an impact on you. They would love to hear from you. They would love to hear that they have made an impact on you. So don't forget those people, and just say thanks. It takes 30 seconds to say thanks. But the impact that comes from that is immeasurable. I think this is important. So much of what I focus on in my classes, it's funny because we focus on a lot on things that aren't really in your typical workday, right? So one of the things I talk a lot about is, find ways to work less, right? And I'm not saying, work less to, cut out of work early or not do your job, but you need to find things that are important to you outside of work. The reality is, the research is clear. We spend most of our waking life at work, right? Because of that, a lot of what happens to us in the workplace influences our lives, our health, what happens to us career-wise, family-wise. It has a huge impact. If you let it impact you to that extent, then you're going to have to live with whatever the consequences that come from having your life be everything at work, right? And there are entrepreneurs and people, startups, who they eat, breathe, and live whatever it is they're doing, and that's great. If they're passionate about it, do it. For most of us, I would argue, we're probably working jobs that we're working jobs that pay the bills, right? We got to pay the bills. Focus on things outside of work. Get involved with things outside of the work that are important to you. Volunteer in a community organization. Learn a skill. Play an instrument. Get involved with a hobby. Find something that's important to you that you want to make yourself better at, that you want to challenge yourself at. If giving back to other people is important, volunteer. There are so many civic organizations out here who need help desperately. They depend a lot on the kindness of their volunteer organizations. And the reality is, there's lots of people who need help in our communities. And there's so many ways you can do that and give back. Do something outside of work. Do something that makes a difference for you, that's important to you. work is going to be there, right? You know, there's always going to be times where you could work more, you could put in more hours. At the end of the day, to me, it just doesn't make that much of a difference if on my headstone it said, you know, I worked 30 minutes more than everybody else every single day. I'd rather be known for someone who wants to help other people, or who has a history of helping people and giving back. You know, if that's for you, great. If not, that's okay too. Find something outside of work that's meaningful to you and do that, and focus more time on that, and try to focus less on things that you can't control, especially when it comes to your work life. Oh, this is another thing. Look, and I tell my sons, they're 13 and 15, people are not going to like you. That's okay. There are people that I work with, there are people in my life that don't like me. Hey, that's cool. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm going to continue to do what I want to do. And I put here, and I'm not trying to be, you know, curt about it, but get some thick skin, right? People are going to criticize. People are not going to like you. People are going to challenge your ideas, and they may have legitimate criticisms of your ideas and what you're suggesting and things like that. Take the time to listen, but at the end of the day, have the courage in your conviction. If you believe in what you're saying, if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in whatever it is that you're trying to do, trying to convey to other people, trying to get other people's buy-in, not everybody is going to like that, and that's okay, right? And I think that's important to convey in this day and age, because I see people, they just have a really hard time if everybody doesn't love them, or if they're not showered with praise and attention. You got to be confident in yourself. Not everybody's going to like you. That is 100% okay. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in who you are, and the rest of it will take care of itself. But you have to understand, especially if you're in a leadership position, not everybody's going to like you. They're not going to like your ideas. That's okay, right? You're not going to change everybody's mind. You're not going to reach everybody. 100% okay. I'm not going to reach everybody. Some of you out there may not like what I'm saying. That's okay, right? Have the courage in your convictions. Believe in what it is that you're saying. Believe in what you are committed to, and know that not everybody is going to believe it to the same extent that you are, and that's completely okay. That's fine, but you got to have some thick skin to be able to deal with that. This kind of goes along with it. Surround yourself with positive people, you know, and again, this is such, you know, if I'd heard this 25 years ago, I'd have been like, get out of here, right? What's with this, you know, positivistic, you know, concern with happiness kind of stuff. I've seen it. I see it on a daily basis. I've seen it in former students. I see it in my life. Negative thinking breeds negative outcomes. If you continue to think about negativity and negative people, negative outcomes, negative things, it just reinforces itself, right? And I'm not saying don't challenge yourself with ideas that challenge what you think or what you believe. You know, expose yourself to those ideas, but surround yourself with other people who believe in making a difference and believe that they can do something positive that makes a difference, right? Because when you do that, that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, or a cycle where if I surround myself with positive people who have a positive outlook, well, guess what's going to happen to my outlook, right? I can tell, and there's actually research that shows this in the workplace, negativity breeds negativity, right? When you've got a coworker who's completely negative, they come to work talking about all the negative things that are happening to them in their lives. Guess what? It infects the rest of the workplace like a plague, right? Surround yourself with other people who are positive, and that will create a cycle where you'll see more positive things, and more positive outcomes will come from that. And again, I know it sounds foo-foo, but I've seen it. I've seen it so many times, and you're not going to see that in any textbook, but it's important. And I'll leave you all with this. This is my last comment, and I'll turn it over for questions. All of you are alums, right? You're smart, you're well educated. It's not your degree, it's not what's on paper that's going to separate you from everybody else. It is your attitude, it's your outlook, it's the way that you carry yourself, it's the difference that you make to other people, how you make them feel about themselves. All of those intangibles are really going to move the needle for you in your career. If you've got great skills, if you've got degrees and you've got this, that, and the other, that's great. Continue to build on that. Challenge yourself to go beyond just, okay, I've got this degree, therefore I deserve, $100,000 job and all the things that comes with that. And again, I work with my students a lot on challenging their assumptions about, especially my MBA students. I got my MBA, I should have people falling at my feet offering me a job. That's not quite how it works, right? You still have to get your foot in the door. There's a lot of things you need to do. What's going to separate you when you get in the door is not the great skills that you bring to the table. It's your attitude. What is it about you that is going to push you to the next level, right? And that all, to me, it all comes down to your attitude, the way you look at life, your optimism, the way that you treat other people, the way that you approach things from a certain perspective. That's what's really going to move the needle for your career and even in your personal life and other areas. But it's great that you've got a degree. It's great that you're smart and well educated. What is it? What else is it that brings value? And I think a big part of that is your attitude. So I'm going to stop there and open the floor for questions. But I just want to say thanks to everybody for listening.
And I've thoroughly enjoyed. I've taken notes and wrote down different things. And if you do have a question, drop them in the chat box. We've got a few minutes for Q&A. I want to start out with, how do you get comfortable with people not liking you? It's easy to say, but it's hard to teach.
It's incredibly hard. And I think it's a mindset that you have to develop, right? And you have to put yourselves in situations where not everybody is going to agree with you, right? So that, I think it's kind of linked to this public speaking idea in that, if I deliver a presentation on something that might be controversial or, might rub somebody the wrong way, I've got to be prepared to get negative feedback on that. The only real way you're going to get better at it is to put yourself in situations where not everybody is going to agree with you, right? And that's hard. I think it's harder these days because we're in this we're in this vacuum, this echo chamber in our social media and other things where we're telling all the people who already like us about all these great things. And it's just reinforcing this cycle of, you like me, I like you. And we're not really engaging other people who might disagree with what we have to say. So it's really hard to do unless you put yourself in situations and be prepared to develop that thick skin over time. It's not going to happen overnight.
And that goes back to getting outside the comfort zone. There's a lot of tie-ins with each one.
Yes.
When you go out and network, what is the balance between talking and listening? Because obviously you're there because you want to put yourself out there and you want people to know who you are, but there's also a nice balance of the two.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that 2-minute elevator pitch, right? I know what it is I want to convey. I know I've got my talking points that I want to talk about. Once I've made those talking points, I want to hear what you have to say, right? So I believe, and I'm sure there's a magic ratio I probably read about, but I do a lot more listening than I do talking at these things. I've got my talking points. Like when I go out in the community, I'm talking about my department, right? I want to talk about the great programs we have, how great our students are. Once I've conveyed that, I want to hear what you have to say. And how does that connect to what I'm trying to convey to you? So I don't know the magic number, but way more listening than talking. But you definitely want to convey what you have to say to other people.
You mentioned negativity and removing yourself from being around that. In the workplace, around home, with family, what's the easiest way to actually accomplish that? Because sometimes that negative person you have to deal with every day.
Yeah. And, there's work situations where, I can't get away from negative people, but I have to, first and foremost, I think you have to make a commitment to being positive in the face of negativity, right? So for me, and I'm not saying like toxic positivity where I'm like, oh, sky is falling, but, things are still being positive and grateful about things that are truly important, right? To me, if I continue to be positive, I'm not going to make a huge difference on those negative people, but I can't let them drag me down with their consistent negativity. And that's really hard. That's one of the hardest things to do, is to not get sucked into that negativity. But the more that I focus on what brings me joy, what makes me positive, the more that I'm grateful about what I do have, what I'm able to do, the more I can tune out those negative voices. And again, it's not easy.
Last question before we wrap things up this afternoon. We talk about the elevator pitch. We talk about it being, 2 minutes or so in length. What are the key components? And we talked a little bit about what do you want to definitely hit on during those 2 minutes?
Well, I think it depends on your purpose for your networking, right? If you're networking for a career opportunity, I want a job in X, Y, or Z, right? And I wouldn't go up to somebody and say, hey, you work at so-and-so, I want to work there. You got any jobs, right? I want to convey to people that here's my skills. I've got this degree. I have learned these things. I have this job experience. I've been doing these things to better myself. You want to have a set of talking points that are aligned with the purpose of why you're networking, right? So again, I go back to what I was just talking about. Purpose for me networking is not career-wise now. It's networking on behalf of my department. So I've got talking points I want to convey. We have X number of grads. We have these programs. Here's where our graduates go to work in Birmingham and beyond. If I convey those talking points, then I'm able to connect with whatever it is, the purpose of that I'm doing that networking to begin with. So figure out what your purpose is, figure out what it is you want to convey. If you're on the network, if you're networking to get a job, don't lead with, I need a job. Focus with, what are your skills? Where would you like to end up in 5-10 years? And what do you bring to the table that could potentially get you there?
Awesome. Dr. Gorman, thank you so much for joining this afternoon and taking time to talk about Adulting 101.
All right. Many thanks. I really appreciate all of you. And if there's anything I can do to be of service to any of you as you would be alums, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure you'll have my contact info. Always happy to chat.
Awesome. Thanks again. And just a reminder, a recording of today's webinar will be uploaded onto our website by tomorrow. As an attendee, you'll receive an email with a replay link once it's online. In a moment, I'll let you know about other webinar opportunities we have coming up. But first, I'd like to invite you to participate in our 17th annual scholarship run presented by Viva Health. Join us at the Battery in Homewood at 8 a.m. on April 15th as we support scholarships through this popular fundraiser. If you're not in the area, no worries. Not only do we have in-person 5K, 10K options, you can also run virtually. Find out more at alumni.uab.edu/5K, 10K. We have another Backpacks to Briefcases event coming up on Tuesday, April 18th. Join us for Reclaiming Your Credit with Dr. Stephanie Yates. During this webinar, discover what you need to know when it comes to rebuilding credit and maintaining a good score. And that, I believe, is actually at noon and not 7 o'clock. I maybe have that slide mistaken. On Thursday, May 4th, come back for Mischief Managed, the way in which Harry Potter transfixed a generation. Potterheads Ebony Harris and Jen Ivey will take a look at the significance Harry and his friends have had in pop culture. And on Thursday, May 18th, take part in another round of Blazer Bingo at the Alumni House. Registration is only $25 and includes a book of 10 games with 6 boards each, a dauber, food, and of course, fun. Check out all of these and many others at alumni.uab.edu/events. Before we go, we'd love to know your thoughts on how we're doing. The QR code on your screen will take you to a very short survey. Take a few moments to share your feedback with us. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. And as always, go Blazers.